Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I hope all of you are doing very well today. In this video, I want to talk about a particular interaction I had with Darth Dawkins. This was actually my second interaction with him, and it took place over 5 years ago, back on May 12th of 2020. I am going to let you listen to part of the comments. The speaker being Darth Dawkins, aka Gary F. Milne. I edited out my own comments, but it's important to note here that I never answered the single question Gary asked, and he asked the same question a total of 8 times in the interaction. After I let you listen to the clip, I will make my comments as to why his single question was so relative to his apologetics, and also how it ultimately served as an example of failure. Here's the clip.
Okay, well, before you begin your debunking of my position, what is your worldview? Are you an atheist, a theist, what? Could you please tell me, are you an atheist or a theist? Yeah, okay. So before you begin your debunking, I'd like to know, are you an atheist or a theist? I'd like to know what your position is. I'm looking to have an adult conversation here. Can you please tell me, are you an atheist or a theist? I'd like to know, are you an atheist or are you a theist? All right, listen. Okay. I'd like to know if you're going to debunk me. I'd first like to know what position you're speaking from. Are you an atheist or a theist? Okay. Now, are you a theist or an atheist? All right. Well, I'm going to wrap this up. There's no he obviously has mental problems. He doesn't want to converse. All right. Well, I want to answer a simple question. So there's no point in me attempting to interact with somebody who doesn't want to interact. Okay, I'm giving him an opportunity to debunk my worldview and my position, and he refuses to answer even the simplest of questions as to whether he's an atheist. Well, I'll give him one more chance. All I want to know is, before he begins his debunking of my worldview and my line of reasoning, I'd like to know from what frame of reference he's coming from. So, Mr. Debunked, are you an atheist or a theist? All right, we're not getting anywhere, Smokey, so I'll be moving on. It's a waste of time. Obviously, this guy's not wrapped too tight. Okay? Thank you for having me on.
No, I appreciate it, Darth. Let's set up something later on, and we can do a one-on-one.
What I'm glad that my personal evaluation for what little I've heard or seen about his site, it actually matches his mental disposition here. He's unhinged. Okay. So I'm glad this happened. So it lets me know he's a mental case.
Okay. Well,
let's let TRN in.
I don't know if TRN's even going to want to come in now because Darth left. But I wanted to.
As you can see from this interaction, a few things stand out. Gary repeatedly asked the same question: are you an atheist or a theist? And this is the leading question within his paradigm. It's a common control strategy. If you don't answer, he frames you as dodging. And if you do answer, he tries to box you into his presuppositional framework. By insisting on labeling me first, he attempts to set the terms of debate so he can steer the conversation into his familiar presuppositional script. When I refuse to answer, he escalates, calling me mentally unhinged, not wrapped too tight, etc. This serves 2 purposes. 1, it's a face-saving exit. And 2, he paints me as the problem, which preemptively justifies his retreat to his audience. Now, what did my refusal to answer his question achieve? By never giving him the atheist-theist foothold, I forced him into a loop where he eventually had no way forward except to quit the conversation. That highlights the dependency of his apologetic method on forcing categories rather than actually engaging. This interaction proves that by not divulging my position, I forced Gary F. Milne into a loop where he repeated the same question He ultimately gave up and left the live feed. This illustrates a critical vulnerability in Van Til's biblical presuppositional apologetics. It doesn't progress without the opponent playing along. If someone refuses to grant the framing, the method has nowhere to go. In short, even though I was a green beginner at this period in time, I knew enough not to answer his question. My silence wasn't avoidance, it was a deliberate counter tactic. And by refusing to play into his binary framing, I revealed that his apologetic approach has no flexibility, no adaptability, and it collapsed into personal attacks when denied its script. Van Til's apologetics is like a racehorse poised at the starting gate. The bell sounds, the race begins, and yet the horse never moves. It stands fixed in place because within Van Til's system, the race cannot even be run unless one first knows with certainty whether their opponent is a believer or an unbeliever. The apologetic stalls before it begins. This highlights a fundamental flaw. Without the ability to identify another person's status, Van Til's method has no traction. It demands the sharp theist versus non-theist distinction in order to function, but in actual dialogue, that distinction is rarely so clear-cut. What happens then? At best, the Van Tillian can retreat into general discourse speaking about morality, logic, science, or meaning in abstract terms. Or, as you just heard in my interaction with wonderfully polite Gary, it can morph into a personal attack and insults. Of course, many Van Tillians simply assume the other person is an unbeliever and proceed as if the antithesis were already established. This is precisely what took place in my recent interaction with YouTuber Certainty Exists 888, and I already posted at least 3 videos relating to that interaction. In the end, he admitted that I had a valid point in my Darth Dawkins the movie video, but he tried to walk it back by accusing me of being neutral. But this accusation, based on the auspices of his own framework, fails to hold because of reasons I have already previously mentioned. Beyond the assumption there is no genuine engagement with the other's actual worldview, the supposed nuclear strength worldview collapses. The irony is striking. A method that claims to shatter neutrality ends up neutralizing itself. By hinging its force entirely on the preliminary identification of one's status before God, it often cannot move forward. The Van Tillian apologist is left either to generalize in ways that could be said by almost anyone, or to assume what needs to be proved. In both cases, the nuclear strength worldview fails to deliver under its own auspices. Thank you for listening. Please continue to have a great weekend, and please feel free to leave any comments or questions in the comments section below.
No intelligent opposition. What does that tell you, folks? They're afraid, very afraid.